Well, welcome everybody. Happy April Fool's Day. How's everybody doing today? All right. Oh, well, maybe. I'm glad you're all here and not thinking it was an April Fool's joke and then nobody's showing up. We did not do this on purpose. I promise. It just worked out that way. My name is Tomas. I'm the recording secretary for the West Pasco Historical Society. I want to thank you again for coming to our monthly event. This is going to be a fun one. We have a lot of our volunteers and board members here, and it's thanks to them that we can put this on for you all, and we really got a kick out of doing this kind of stuff. So thank you all for being here. Before I welcome our speaker, I want to let you know that myself and some of the other volunteers are working on restarting or continuing, because we do have some videos from before, but we're continuing our Living History project. So what that is a set of interviews that have been recorded in the past with Gulf High alumni, with other pioneer families of the Pasco County area from throughout the years. We have interviews from a long time ago, and we're trying to get that started up again. So if either yourself or someone you know would be interested in participating, ideally we'd like to record the interviews all here at the museum and the library area, but if for some reason the person that you have in mind is not able to travel, or that's a little difficult for them, we can travel to wherever they are or meet them somewhere that's more convenient for them, and we can record the interview there. But we'd really like to get that going again. We have a few people in mind, but we'd like to just have a list going, and that way we can just every few weeks or so have another interview, and that way we can build up our library, because it's been a while since we've done that, so we want to get that going again. So like I said, if you or someone you know is interested, just talk to me or one of our board members or volunteers and let us know. Okay. All right. Now I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Olaf Danielson to Peace Hall this evening. He is a writer and researcher for the Naturist Education Foundation. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Perfect. See? Got it. And he's going to tell us about the interesting history of naturalism. Is it naturalism or naturism? Naturism, okay. In Pasco County. I don't know much about it. I know about Caliente. Are you talking about Caliente? See, I know a little bit. That's it. But I've never been, I promise. So I'm looking forward to the presentation, and I'm sure you all are. So please, come on up. Round of applause.
Well, thank you. I hope this is working right to left. I'm looking left to right this time, so we'll see how this goes. And we'll give a definition. We have a definition. A few pages here, so you can get your words correct.
Excellent.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you for coming here. Well, actually, I'm on the board of directors of the Naturist Education Foundation, which is based in Oshkosh, which is a 501c3 nonprofit supporting naturist education, scholarships, and we have our own research library. There are three major nudist research libraries in North America, one in Canada, and then a couple of small ones that are trying to become research libraries, which house all these archives and stuff from basically now 85 years of naturism in America. So, but I have a house in Pasco County in Lutz. Live in one of these communities, have an RV and run one of these communities, and a member of a third one of these communities. So I sort of have some personal background when I was co-author of this book, which came out last spring, and it's sort of been introducing it around. It's kind of how would I say it? It's an interesting book. It's different than anything anybody's pretty much put out. And I'm sort of making this a goal. My next project is on naturism in New Jersey, so things kind of move around. And anyways, so special thanks to lots of people that are here, some of which I have not mentioned that are here. I've already thanked before. Now, I've talked about a lot of things. I'm sort of an expert or quasi-expert or know a little bit too much and can be a little bit dangerous about quite a few topics. So I'm not talking about any of my pithy stories about toll bridge fraud in Wisconsin or Minnesota. Not any of my fiction. So hopefully this is a little more exciting and interesting than toll bridges. Personally, I think toll bridges are interesting, but everybody has their thing. So this is a story about the history of nudism in Pasco County. So if that's not what you're here to see, you're in the wrong place. And maybe my talk's going to be a little too long. By the way, this sign was from Idaho, before my time actually. It's rare to have speaking engagements on this topic in textile circles. People tend to make assumptions about nudists and nudist communities that are quite frequently wrong, using the wrong terms. It is my job to educate, maybe entertain a little bit, and at least entertain myself. Maybe sell a couple books if anybody's brave enough to buy one after this, and keep things straight. This is one of my favorite pictures of anything. I like the heathens keep moving picture. Now I'm going to start out with a easy question and answer period that has nothing to do with my talk, but I just saw these 3 photos of protest. So which one do you guys think is fake? Do you think this one is fake? Anybody? Do we think this one is fake? And they're saying nudists get out, no nudists wanted here, something about the nudists, and then the end is in sight. That one's well, that one is real. That's a religious zealot that's taken in 1979 in England on a nude beach. This is real. This was taken in 1932 in San Diego. Very mad about Sally Rand, who was a burlesque performer who the nudist thought was giving nudists a bad rap. She was having a burlesque house in San Francisco. It was at the World's Fair and causing mass pandemonium. This is a stage for a movie called Nudes of the World in 1962. So, anyways, so I'm going to give you a little perspective. 10 days ago, I had my 60th birthday party. I have now become a sesquigenarian. It was a normal Sunday afternoon barbecue party in Pasco County. Beautiful day. 100 people were at my quasi-birthday party. But unlike most birthday parties, everyone was naked. A birthday in my birthday suit, so to speak. People used a lot of sunblock, yes. We had a band called Midnight Blue. The lead singer sang an entire 3-hour set naked. The guitarist, who was wearing a pair of shorts, stripped off and swam in the pool. There was dancing at the pool deck, in the water. Afterwards, there was karaoke. The head of the condo association sang his three-part rendition of "I Love This Bar." He makes up a few words to sort of fit the Pasco County. And except for the nudity, the music was more risque than the crowd was. But no photos or cameras and no pictures were taken, and I know because they're typically verboten at nudist events unless you happen to be special permission or older stuff. And you will be surprised how many photographs I have accumulated. But I will say this, just so you say that being fair, here's a naked picture of me taken in Arizona a few years ago. And I just want to be fair. My co-author, Lee St. Mary, who's the historian at Lake Como, was actually on HBO a week ago, wearing nothing.
Thank you.
Let me move a little bit. Lee was on HBO, so if you want to watch season 1, episode 6 of Neighbors on HBO Max, you can get a little bit of history of Eden, which is not too far from here. And you can also see Lee, who is, for some reason, was pictured because they had been at another nudist place 3 months earlier and kind of got thrown out when they're filming it. So somehow he got in and sort of described as being a resident Eden, even though he was just visiting. So, as I said, it's a talk on nudism, and for full disclosure, there may be a little bit more than PG-13 at times. But to give you warning before my talk, it's a little spicy. I hope not too spicy. In case you need to prepare yourself, I'll be flashing Walter Goggins' warnings ahead of time for the Doritos project commercial ad series that he did. So, nudism, Pasco County. These are 2 photographs. One is in 1990, where Paradise Lakes set the world record of having 307 people in their hot tub. And place in Jamaica broke it, so they did it again the next year and put 334 people in this hot tub. I'm not quite sure I would want to be in that hot tub, but so these are the kind of crazy things. And then in 2010, Lake Como participated in the world record skinny dip, which 14,110 people all were in a pool, all across America, all at the same time. It's kind of they call it the world record skinny dip, and I think I participated in that one in Minnesota, but I can't remember, to be quite honest. So let's get on to the more meat and potatoes here. So you think you know your county history, and probably you guys know the county history a lot better than I do. So, in what Pasco County city 25 years ago was an entire art beautification project put on hold, and apparently it still is, over a controversial mural in which it had already received a grant to paint it. Mm-hmm. And St. Pete Times said that the mural would be a good addition to Paradise Lakes, but not where we were planning it. So, of course, we had beautiful Newport Richie, and apparently some of you guys even know this story. So, Sister City International is a program developed in 1956 for many things to support cultural and exchanges of music performances. And I know some singers. My hometown is Sister City is in Sweden, so they sent people over to Sweden to play music, and people in Sweden came over to do their little singing and dancing over in Wisconsin. Cavalier-sur-Mer is in France, is the sister city of Newport Richie. And 30 years ago, this fine community in the French Riviera decided that they wanted a new travel poster. So they were holding art contest with a 50,000 euro award, which is a lot of money 30 years ago. And the painting was going to be featured on a new poster, because they wanted, these are classic French Riviera posters. They wanted to have their own great poster. So the planners here decided to name Cavalier Square after their sister city, and they were focused on cultural events downtown. So first, they erected this sculpture from a Nebraska artist in 1998, and had big plans to beautify this entire little square in the center of the city. So Newport Richie decided that since Cavalier was going to hold this contest, they were going to convince the French that the winning painting will be painted on the GTE building, which is still there, and the square will be renamed Cavalier Square. Be a place to showcase music, downtown events, going to be the greatest thing for Newport Richie tourism ever. And the French are excited. Oh, this is a great idea. We like this idea. And so the French had a big party there with all these hundreds of submissions, because 50,000 euros is a lot of money. They had a party, they had wine, they had champagne, and a grand unveiling. And the winner is La Baie de Graces, which is Grace Bay, by a Polish artist. And the fine folks in the tourism officer let me use this picture, because it kind of made it. Some residents have an oh my God moment because there was a visible nipple in that picture. And so when Newport Richie asked the city of France and the artist if they could move this dolphin over to cover the nipple, the French are justifiably quite mad. And they are still mad. So, you look real closely. I think there's a nipple underneath that arm. So, I didn't look today, but last time I was in Newport Richie, there's a wall that was going to have this wonderful painting on it. Maybe another, they did have two, I don't know. It's not the same place at the Mayor Bridge. In fact, I couldn't even find the word Cavalier Square anywhere. The thing from Nebraska is still there. I was trying to figure it out. I'm assuming they use it once in a while.
It's been completely renovated, and it's going to have a brand new building on there.
Ah, good. I was more interested in they have a propane tank right behind it. And all these cars parked there.
It's still referred to that area right there as Cavalier Square, but we have Railroad Square now going to be. Yeah, down between the buildings.
So when I asked these fine folks in France if I could use it, they said yes on one condition. That I tell the story of American Nudism and use it as my cover. So this talk finishes my responsibility. I'm done with it. So we're going to talk about definitions, and this cartoon says, "Do you ever hike naked?" The woman on the left says, and absolutely, mostly on weekdays. So I'm less likely to be seen. And the first woman who asked the question was, hiking naked means no electronics or GPS. And of course, that lady goes, no. So there's a lot of confusing definitions. And this is a book and a talk on naturism or nudism, or maybe it's both, maybe it's neither. So we're going to explain a little bit about definitions. There are 4 types of terms used when anyone does not wear clothing in group settings. I would say nudist, naturist, kind of a laundry list of health resorts, health spas, going to the spa, going to the sanitarium. Back in the day could mean you're not going to be wearing any clothes in a group setting. And then of course there's clothing optional. So nudist is simply someone who desires to be nude historically is more someone being naked for a short period of time. So you go to a camp or a resort that cater to people coming for a weekend or a week, you would go to the nudist camp or the nudist resort. They are not and never have been called colonies. I will correct one place in a moment that is different than that. But none of these places were ever known by nudists as colonies. They were known as colonies by non-nudists. So generally that's kind of an offensive term. So the term naturist, which is somewhat more common now describing this activity, but historically in 1930, it meant different. Now, in Europe, naturism, I can't say the French word exactly, naturist is a different meaning than the American word. They have different roots and they sort of look alike and have sort of been co-opted a little bit to make things more confusing. But in the 1930s, naturist meant a nature writer who wrote aesthetically, like, ooh, the beautiful green trees and the beautiful valleys, versus naturalist who wrote about nature scientifically. This is a book called The American Naturist, published by a guy named Tracy in 1930 that has nothing to do with anyone being naked. It's explaining these different terms and all he had 14 naturist writers back then that wrote aesthetically. So, but words change. So in 1895, Dr. Benedict Lust brought naturopathy from Germany to New Jersey. Had a branch clinic in Tangerine, Florida. A guy named Physical Culture, Bernard McFadden, had a magazine that promoted this at the same time, very similar. They had a lot of followers, they had devotees, they had some copycats wanting to make fast money. So they started using the word naturist in association with naturopathic activities, and it's sort of evolved over 30 years. They called the treatment of people who took the nature cure if. Kind of an unwieldy thing for a newspaper to write, so pretty soon it became nature with a dash is, and then finally it became naturist. But basically I meant people who took the nature cure, which mean a lot of things, but frequently they were naked. And these people did some rather nutty stuff in the 1930s. Naturists were people supporting naturopathic lifestyle, which almost always was back then being naked in fresh air, taking the vegetarians and all kinds of things. You took sun baths for health. This is a cabin that Lust invented. It had a open on the top, and the patrons at this sanitarium, these were in Tangerine, Florida too, were encouraged to sleep naked in the fresh air without even needing covers up north. And they wanted all this fresh air because they felt it was quite a healthy situation. And that picture's in 1922, so it's been around quite a long time. So the first documented nudist and naturist in Pasco County were Herman and Rose Chaikin family in Zephyr Hills. There's a published account, comes from 1933, when pioneer nudists also from New York and New Jersey, Reverend Henry Huntington, stopped at their farm in 1933 to check up on it. Rose was known to be so deeply tanned she appeared to not worn clothing in quite some time. The two boys apparently had never worn clothing when they moved. This couple opened up a packaging company in 1924. They followed Henry Hudson's book, which was called Green Mansions. And after becoming raw vegetarians, they changed the name of his company to Natural Foods Company. And it became a success and lasted until 1965 in Zephyr Hills. Until after the father's death, they had bugs in the packaging. And they renamed it Zephyr Products and had to move the whole operation to Orlando, and it sort of died. If no one bought the products, I wouldn't be buying Natural Foods if they had bugs in them. So many other families moved around them with similar ways because it was safe. And they were sort of on the map up there, you can see they're way out, almost in Polk County. And some of these guys who lived out there became quite infamous. These self-described children of the soil. This is a picture down in Devil's Garden near Sebring. After they moved from Pasco County, there was 4 Windish children there, and Johnny Werlo, who changed his name later on to Johnny Loveman. Besides being nude, they try to live like gorillas. And following, or other groups follows an alien, or it's an angelic cult, or some religious thing. They threw a lot of different things for people back then are trying to find their happy place. Some people got into UFOs, they drank coconut water. A lot of their ideas would be considered crackpot, obsession with creating a super race of people that lived forever. And these people also followed Henry Hudson's Green Mansions book, which my wife and I listened to last summer, and we're like, really? So the reason they left Pasco was there was heavy frost in the late 30s. It was hard to grow fruit up here. And so they, besides going down to the Devil's Garden, they went to Panama, to Cuba, to Ecuador. 2 of the Windish children died in Ecuador. Another person who lived in Pasco died in the Devil's Garden. That's a headline from when she did die. She was a nurse from Michigan that moved down here. And so these people's Florida dreams became nightmares. This is the Windish family entirety. And I actually wrote another book, so if you guys are really brave, you can buy this book, which has quite a bit about Florida, some even around here. The craziest sea voyage of all time started in Tampa in the 30s, so another great story I want to talk about. But these are not colonies, they are naturist communities. So people who live, try to make a go of it, we're not naturist camps, they're naturist communities. And so living full-time together would be more than spectrum of a naturist. Only one nudist location I know of in the U.S. is the term colony. That was a new civilization, vegetarian colony in New Jersey. But that would be also considered a naturist community. In the 60s, the term naturism was largely died out. Got co-opted by the free beach movement. And one definition, though, I saw now in 2025, they called nudism a pejorative term for naturist. I never explained why that's pejorative to my satisfaction. So the word police are working on all this. In general, I use the 2 terms interchangeably. Although only really the Florida Naturist Park and City Retreat ever had naturism in their names. And Florida Naturist Park is sort of weird in its own right, but City Retreat's pretty much like the rest of the places we'll discuss generally. And anyways, that's pretty much the story of that. And then the spas, sauna culture, and solariums. These are typically sex segregated, so all the ladies are over here. Maybe there's a wall, maybe there's a curtain, maybe there's a room. Solarium was started in St. Pete in 1922 by Dr. Melville when he wrote an article, which was co-opted by the newly hired St. Petersburg Director of Tourism. And he took it and ran it. The largest solarium in America was at St. Pete from 1927 to 1961. These are small sun baths, which I'll talk to in a second here. So this is inside the solarium at St. Pete. You can see the old Vanoy Hotel. They also had a solarium on the roof, but they had, and you can see that at Spa Beach, how large this was. And volleyball, you see the volleyball court way back there. So there's a section for women, a section for men. Supposedly, there was a place to hit from one side to the other. But nobody ever filmed that, so I don't know if that's just talk or what happened. A lot of people would fly over from the airport and take pictures from above. We had these small solariums, which were all over the place in St. Petersburg and Pinellas County. This is from 1930. These places charged $1 to sit beside them. It was the Sunshine City, and back then, St. Pete had been called the Naked City. So here's some other photos from the original one, 1928, before they rebuilt it the next year. The proof of this is, they advertise the nudity of this. This is a sign, enjoy your sunbath weekly in the nude. She's had a little too much sunbath. But they had 100,000 visits a year in the 1930s. The only problem was them in the local nudist camp, Mossy Oaks, wanted to have their own float in a parade. One of the churches had was creating quite a picket line. They weren't too happy about it. Here's the outside of the Temple of the Sun. It had an interesting name for a Christian community. They redid it in 1955. And because they didn't want to have the pool segregated and they didn't want to have the solarium segregated, they closed all that stuff up in Spa Beach in 1962. So, sort of the old argument, nudist activities versus activities in the nude. They're sort of can be kept separate, so things sort of arbitrary. But like I said, these are usually same-sex places. I'm going to give you a little spicy warning here, so I'm not supporting Doritos, because I can't eat Doritos because I have MSG intolerance. But Lake Como Estate in Pasco was started in 1939 as a health spot. It was called initially the Florida Athletic and Health Association, and it was also shared by the American Gymnosophical Association, which was from New Jersey as its winter retreat. Doctors from around the area were recommending nude air baths for many ailments, and so they went to the St. Pete Solarium or Lake Como because Como was more exclusive than the solarium actually. So they wanted to go to be, most of these people were professionals and didn't want the class system back in the 30s. But late in the 40s, the person actually doing this, which had buckets to put the water in so to get the toxins out of your feet. You don't see that all the time. So you say, well, it's kind of strange. Well, here's a painting from my bedroom. And you can see that the ladies are carrying over the wash tub for her feet. And so that's typically the way these are done. In many towns, and still some hotels in Sweden and Finland, you have baths 2 days. It's ladies for the first hour, men for the second hour, and then families together. And after dark, assuming there is dark, if it's not the middle of summer, it's for couples. So the Lake Como, these former pioneers believed it was actually unnatural for and unhealthy for unisex sunbathing, and it led to all kinds of same-sex behavior. We're not going to make any descriptions if this is good or bad, but that was their belief back then, so they didn't like this whole solarium idea. In fact, if you look up the St. Pete Solarium in all the nudist archives, the only thing there is stuff I gave to it. Nobody ever wrote about that solarium in nudist circles until recently. So what does clothing optional mean? This is the sign outside Paradise Lakes. That was coined on December 9th, 1926, when chewing gum magnate William Wrigley announced that Catalina Channel Swim was going to be clothing optional. And strangely, or luckily enough, the last three in the water, one man and two women, all swam naked. Created a big deal, and that was a long time. That's even before nudism came to America. It seems to make somewhat sense. And there's a stunning anatomically correct tile mermaid mural today in Catalina Island's Avalon Theater on the outside wall. It was built where the event started 2 years earlier. And is it honoring the female nude swimmers? I don't know. It seemed kind of coincidental. But I guess astonishingly conservative California of 1929 was more liberal than NPR in 2000. So we go safety while I'm throwing in puppies, and now we're back to safe photos. The one on the left is my dog, Tulsa. So, clothing optional has changed. We mentioned Caliente. Most clothing option resorts are over 21 or lifestyle. And these are code words. which to various degrees promote sexual activities over nude recreational activities. Many clothing option resorts are unaffiliated resorts now that are designed, have designated playrooms or areas that have rules which are variously enforced on what you can do and where, and they can create some confusion. There's essentially two lifestyle places now that used to be ANA or American Sunbathing Association, which support the nude recreational activities. Caliente is one of them. Paradise Lakes Resort is another one. We'll discuss that when we get to that in a little bit. There's also a gay clothing option resort and camp, and I'm not quite sure what the rules are, but I'm sort of thinking it's more like this, but I'm not sure. That's up by Gage City, which we'll talk about later too. And to make things even more confusing, clothing optional features means something different. And I think it also confuses the lifestyle over 21 folks, because some people equate that as they do the resorts, and if they get a little bit too sexually suggestive at these beaches, they're going to be arrested. And so typically we always tell the patrons who are trying to promote the clothing optional beaches, we're trying to get one in Ellis County, that we have to police them to keep these bit of confusion unconfused, so there's no weird sexual activities on the beaches. So anyways, here's a picture from most every sign or logo for most every nudist venue in Pasco County. Here's a map describing all these. Most of them, because Como is based here, and Paradise Lakes came down here, most of them are in the middle. But there's one way up there, and historically one there, and some out this way. I think just where people were back in the day when they started things, like I was told, there was a lot of people living on this side of the county. So there's 11 venues currently in the county, but that depends on how you count. There could be more. Paradise Lakes is actually 6 different entities on the property. Eden has 2 different entities. And historically there's 5 or 6 more depending on how you count, and if they count them, they're going to be built. If they didn't get built, there's 1,500 houses or semi-permanent dwellings, like park bungalows in nudist neighborhoods in this county. There's about 300 temporary camping spots. Many thousands of visitors per year. It's sort of hard to get these numbers. There's 4 places with a liquor license. Restaurants you can eat naked in are 3, sometimes there's a 4th one. Swimming pools you must swim naked in are 8. Clothing optional, the mostly naked pools are 3. The first pool in this county for nude swimming only was built in 1958. Like I said, there's 2 lifestyle resorts, one LGBTQ, mostly G location in Sawmill. And nudist architecture was invented in the Dupree Gardens area in the 1950s. It was site of the first nudist housing development in this county, but that's a lecture for another time. Somebody's wrote an entire book on nudist architecture that started here. 11 are still operating. Here's all their start dates. You can see from 1939, before the Great Recession in 2008. Screwed up the property prices. It'd been a good time to buy and then build, but I think everybody got broke after 2008 at the time. So, what do you really know? Nudism is generally a secret society. Historically, first name only groups. Even nudist writers use fake names. It's hard to tell who these people are. So just think to yourself, how many here know the names? How many neighbors and friends do you know have a secret? Maybe they're nudists. Maybe they just like going to Mexico with friends. Who knows? How many nudists lived in Pasco County? Still live in Pasco County. These are hard numbers to get to. It's sort of like the polls for the Trump elections. How could the elections results in 2024 be off by nearly 20%? Simply because you ask somebody, are you a nudist? They're going to say no. Are you going to vote for Trump? They're going to say no. So it's difficult to get these numbers. And so when moralists decide they go after nudists over the years, what do they truly know about their neighbors? Somebody goes to church on Sunday. Maybe on Saturday they're at the nudist resort. And employees, I don't know what it is. So there's always risks making assumptions. And the most classic assumption of all time is Mr. Chan. Mr. Ernest Chan wrote in the Tampa Tribune that there are no nudists on Dupree Lake. no nudist resort, there are no nudists. He guaranteed a series of letters to the editor. And he was, that article right there. So, he was visited by all his neighbors. Somebody got a photograph, that's the Chad house. Those are his next door neighbors who are, and it turns out the only non-nudist on Dupree Lake was Mr. Chad and his wife. They were all nudists. Then he sort of wrote that, then he became this supporter of nudists in the county, because now he knew everybody. So, and so periodically the politicians have gone after the nudists in this county. Sometimes a made-up reason, sometimes for no apparent reason than that, sometimes indirectly because they're going after thong bikinis or teabag one-piece suits, kind of strangely. And there's always this question, were they sowing their seeds for their own demise? And politics can be kind of a rough business. So this is 1977. This is Sheriff John Short. Brought a busload of press to a 7 in the morning raid in Lake Como looking for drugs. So how much is a picture worth? So I don't have the angle, but the other TV camera that was next to here was filming his press conference. He arrested 30 people, doing all these tests and fingerprints and a little machine, a little table they had set up there. Some brave lady was in the outside shower in this angle and showered for 40 minutes. Ended up on the news. Sued the news and Pasco County Sheriff's Department for 50 grand. And won. Considered a violation of her civil rights. Ended up all this after all the drug charges were dropped. The county had to pay 50 grand to this woman. The TV station had to pay 50 grand to this woman. And the moral of the story is to know your voters. Lots of connected and powerful people with the Como Act. Lots. And also Paradise Lakes when it opened in 1982 or 83. I know stories of Justice Scalia, who went to the nudist resort in St. Martin. So, when the Tampa Bay Times Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist got Short indicted on corruption charges in 1983, I pondered, were they nudists? Possibly they were offensive information by some nudists. Maybe someone in the sheriff's department was a nudist. So Fred Bischoff, secret partner of Paradise Lakes, Ed Wood, would make a powerful enemy. He got the Buccaneers in town, and he had a $300,000 debt forgiven in Las Vegas. And I know this because I've seen the IRS court case. He didn't pay taxes on it. And so, which group of people owned the Vegas casinos? Well, it was maybe the ones that like the Sopranos. And with Pasco, Paradise Lakes doubling its footprint every year in membership, and Bischoff lived at Como in 1977, but happened to be out when they were arresting everybody. Possibly this was a vendetta attack when he got arrested. So the Secret Lives of Nudists, there's Fred Bischoff at St. Petersburg Youth Ranch. He's the guy that founded Paradise Lakes. On the left there, Ed Rood's the guy in the middle. And here is Ed Rood. Nobody knew who he was. Well, here he's at the grand opening of Paradise Lakes, and there's his girlfriend. That's the only clothed picture I have of his girlfriend. She did not like wearing clothes. So I decided I'd skip that and put this one in. But, he was a gambler, political wannabe, Sunday school teacher, property developer, oil magnate, lawyer from St. Petersburg. A few failed projects, sketchy histories. Doing the V Club was a wannabe to build up Blackberry Lakes, which actually the property was used partially to become Caliente years later. He was hooked into with a Canadian stock swindler to have the first publicly traded nudist resort stock in the country, but it was a scam, and a lot of people lost their money. And then there's Natura, which was a crazy project up here. We've already sort of discussed that, so I won't skip that thing. But Lake Como is the longest continuously operating nudist venue in Florida. It was opened on November 1st, 1939, and it's still around. Hillsborough decided to ban nudists in 1939, but the state only banned them in counties between 155 and 165,000 people, which only affected Hillsborough, but possibly evolved depending on which census was used. Mossy Oaks had closed up 2 weeks before because they knew something was going on, so they went back to New Jersey. And they actually arrested a guy with a solarium in his backyard in Temple Terrace, and he was the guy whose case went to Tallahassee to see if it was legal. The law actually made it illegal to change out your clothing, be examined by a doctor. It was illegal technically in Hillsborough County to have surgery naked on an exam table. That's how crazy the law was. If you took a shower, you were violating the law. So then you get to the law, they said it was wrong on procedural account, things that got overturned. But pretty much everybody decided they wanted it out of Hillsborough County. So Hillsborough County was pretty much nudist free from 1939 on, because when the guys from New Jersey came back that fall, they were looking for something in a different county. And they rented the Leonard cabin. Leonard was Rusty Leonard was a truck farmer from over by Luce. And he had just died. His wife either went to the nudist place, was familiar with it because she went to France every summer, and she owned salons around Tampa, so she went and rented their lake place, and it became Como. That's the first ad that was ever said that there's a place in Pasco County. So, the largest amateur ASA clubs in America, when this Lake Como was pretty small. You can see this is an old photo of Lake Como from 1954. And less than 100 members. You see a few cars there, the buildings, letters, put a fence up right away. Occupying a few acres of what its total footprint was. Most of the Lake Como State Land Trust was starting to plant oranges. In 1954, the American Sunbathing Association sponsored and Excelsior Pictures produced the first mainstream nudist film in America called The Garden of Eden, and it was filmed there. Como was paid $500, and many members were in the film. And here's the story. It was the best marketing idea in the history of nudism, but Como didn't know what they'd gotten into. Because basically, it was a volunteer thing. People manned the phone, people cooked meals, it was, people did the yard, it was sort of a cooperative venture. But by the spring of 1955, membership had doubled to 200. And the phone was ringing off the hook so much that the person who was in charge had to get a secretary from his law office down there to just answer the phone. Because people saw this movie and said, well, we got to go to Florida. This is the place to go. We want to go to the same place this place was filmed. So by Christmas 1955, the membership had doubled again. And the trustee of the land trust, Eric Brubaker, was so stressed out that in February of 1956, was also stressed out because they were putting the Dale Mabry extension through Como land, which he didn't quite know where it was going to go until they got up to the property. He was so stressed out about this, he died of a sudden heart attack. So here's one of the releases from the movie. In 1957, it doubled again as more states relaxed their censorship laws to allow the film. Sometimes in Nudist County, this film was introduced by people. Afterwards, they were giving out cards. It was just the marketing value of this film is hard to appreciate. 58, it broke 1,000 members. I have a picture of 3 rooms of only the 1,000 member plaques they got. And in early 1961, membership had reached 2,000 members. It was now the largest club in North America. The Senator State Representative Joe Miller. He did not really understand any of this. He actually stated, quote, nudism doesn't add anything of value to Pasco County. He thought there was like a few members, maybe 12. So they come up with this idea that, again, in a county between 48,000 and 52,000, it was, you had to get all these things. You had to have fingerprints done, you had to be licensed by the county, you had to have others of reference, background checks, names of family members. And it was the only county that it qualified was Pasco. So the licensing burden alone would have probably destroyed Pasco County. And one of the places the Nudists were thinking about doing that was to just put the paperwork through and let the county just bury itself and 2,000 to 3,000 people applying for licenses. But they didn't do that because they thought the law was kind of stupid. So, and of course, nobody figured out that, you know, we got 2,300 members. That's not an insignificant amount of people back in those days. And also, thousands more were coming in as winter tourists into the county, spending a lot of money. But it didn't seem like the people who were fighting this really cared about that. So we're going to have another warning sign here. So sometimes in the textile world, even nudist groups didn't know who existed, because there was 3 different national organizations in the 60s. So this is a sign, you can't see it, but it says Meadowbrook NNC, which is National Nudist Council, which is one of the national affiliations. They got into a fight and split like a church. This photo's from 1961 on the left. That's Olaf Danielson, not a relation. This is pictured in Sunshine and Health magazine. But Meadowbrook sat on the adjoining property of the Bellamy Brothers, up in Dartmouth. And I wonder if they know, did the song Naked Lady, Old Hippie, possibly mean the people that were outside his bedroom window? Because there's a picture of one of the co-owners, Tommy Waters, in 1962, having a speaker that must have been this big. And you wonder if all that blaring country music coming across the trees from next door maybe affected those kids. And they became singers. I don't know. But anyway, nobody knew they were there. I was only through luck that I figured out that this place was located there. It didn't advertise a lot, but there was one article, and I was able to deduce it in one newspaper article described a dump kind of up in that neck of the woods. And I'm like, where was that dump? So I tracked it down. And the other problem is NNC records were burnt in around 25 years ago. So it's hard to find all these things. Dupree Gardens was unaffiliated back then, and Como was the other group, ASA. And these guys called themselves the Florida Gymnosophical Society just because they liked the name. It's always funny, they have 2 or 3 names in the same place. And then there's like the Sands Club, which has one article in the world. And there was a letter to the editor describing obscenity, happy with the person who was arresting obscenity police in Hillsborough. And so, but it was listed as a spot and kind of index ad as one of the nudist journals until 1966. I don't know where it was. It could have been Hillsborough County for all I know. But their address was a Nude's post office box. So what does that mean? And then there's the great Alwyn Purkis, who was located near Trilby, who shows up in the summer of 1960 with a New York NNC lawyer at a Pasco County board meeting to argue against Pasco. Their first attempt was trying to zone out nudists. And he claims to be selling lots to nudists. The only other reference of him is from Lake Como, stating we do not know what Purkis has going on up there. But he claimed he had a community but not a camp. So anyways, caught, went to jail. He decided to be the test case. So he got himself arrested. They went to the Florida Supreme Court, who struck down the law because it was unconstitutional in the state of Florida because it was only for one county. He became a hero in the nudist community, and due to the size of the club rules, one of the most powerful people in nudism, controlling all the national votes. And because it was now deemed legal in Pasco County, because of this stupid fight with the laws, Como grew even faster. So McLean does not run for re-election in 1962. I don't know if it was because of this or because he wanted to be the prosecutor for Pasco County. Nobody's going to admit to that. But Como reached 3,200 members in 1972, still the largest ASA club, but was passed by Cypress Cove, which was formed in 1962, basically because people were worried that Pasco County could not be trusted, and so they put their camp in Poinciana over south of the land. Paradise Lake, which started in 1981, it became the largest club in 1994, passing Cypress Cove. It peaked at just over 6,000 members. Had the largest designation until 2002, but had 4,400 members. And when Cypress Cove passed it up again, Cypress Cove is still the largest nudist club in North America. So Caliente was also an affiliate initially, but they lost their affiliation. They would say they would go to a new business direction. They sooner moved their playground for kids and opened a playroom for adults. Sexualized, generally they owned the pool as nude, but they did not ever market their nudity. So much so that once in a while you see reports from someone in the online where they're not really realizing what they treated their RCI timeshare points to go to. And oh my goodness, everybody's naked. So Paradise Lakes was cruising along just fine, and then this guy named John Corey from Colorado bought it in 2007 on a whim with a two-week closing. He wanted to make it his personal playground, and at one of the party on July 4th to close it. So he waived all his rights to have the due diligence of the resort. Then he actually sued the former owner in the Supreme Court, Florida Supreme Court, saying that, wow, that's not what I meant. And he lost because he was considered, because he was a real estate guy, not a virgin property buyer. Experience is the word. So Caliente had poached most of the employees that they had in 2008. And his business falls off during the financial crisis at Paradise Lakes. Florio picks a fight with the homeowners, members and visitors. He decides to go in competition with Caliente for spite. And in 2009, he published that ad with that party, which got Andrew's attention, which picked him up. And they've not been a member of the American Association of Nude Recreation since that summer of 2009. And Florio said he didn't care. Yeah, whatever. Membership at Paradise Lakes dropped from 4,400 to just a little over 600 under his ownership. Everybody hated him. Nobody ever said the next word about him. He died in a car accident with his girlfriend going 110 miles an hour in 2011 in Texas Panhandle. And nobody feels any remorse. Actually, for rumors when they announced it at the pool, everybody stood up and cheered. Not good to be a businessman. So the next owner there was sort of agnostic, but he worked really lifestyle. And now they sold it to another group which is lifestyle bands. So that's sort of Paradise Lakes history. This is John Fourier trying to blockade access to homes. He realized it was not mandatory for homeowners to be members of his club, and most by then were not. He got mad and locked them all out, and they got a court order to get them back in. So there's 6 condo associations in Paradise Lakes plus the resort. Some of the condo associations are ANA, Association of Nude Recreation affiliated. The resort's nothing. And so it's kind of weird. And, it's hard to get your head around what is Paradise Lakes. I don't know. I brought my daughter and my son-in-law to trivia night there last week for drinks, bar food, and my daughter got 3rd place. Only 1st place got the money. Anyways, so some of the crazy stories. Here's a riverboat. Pasco County decided this art installation was actually a building without a permit, so therefore it had to go. As it could be a building. What would you describe it? It was an art installation. Because it has a wall and a seaway. First documented nude water skiing in Americas at Lake Como, 1954. At least the first photograph. I assume since they're already doing tricks in 1954, that this is the first time they were on the water ski. Tampa Bay Water Ski Show team performed at Como Natural for 60 years, but got into a tip for Lake Como manager in 2016 over fees. And 20 years of nude bowling at Memorial Lane, which is now an auto body place. Sadly, and a sign out front for nude bowling on Sunday and Monday night. CBS crew showed up at Como in 2001 with the Super Bowl was in Tampa for the Buffalo Naked Flag Football Championship at Lake Como, covered by CBS Sunday morning as well. Both Paradise Lakes and Caliente have Lions clubs, and so the 2 clubs lost their ANA affiliation in the mid-2000s. They, of course, met in the Nude and were featured here in Internationally magazine. That's where this picture's from, and they little pins from the Paradise Lakes Lions Club. So maybe that was a little too spicy. I think the goal was she keeps eating the chips. I don't know. Well, we'll go back and see my puppy here. We can talk about Walter Burrell. I might do a biography on him. He's probably the most interesting nudist in Pasco County. Football star from Montana, boxing coach, University of Tampa football coach, Boots High School coach, Hillsborough High School coach, mountaineer, English teacher, excavator, operator, and environmentalist. He's always fighting with somebody. Tampa Bay Times in '73 called him a man of oak and iron. That's their headline. doing a little bit of this story. He met his wife when he came out. He was in a coma from an appendicitis, and she was telling her fellow nurse that she really liked hiking Nude and really was sad that she had to waste a great day. Take care of this poor guy that's going to die. So he decides he's not going to die because the most preposterous thing he's going to do. And he says, "I'm going to live. I'm going to get out of this hospital. I'm going to fight her to go hiking." And I don't think she's not best to go hiking Nude. She hiked for 20 hours with him. And when he got back from the trail, he went to the Justice of the Peace at midnight and got married. One day. Next day, though, he goes on this great river journey. A 77-day journey it took him to go from Fort Benton, Montana, to New Orleans. Went with a buddy. Then from New Orleans, he went solo in his canoe, because he liked that canoe, from New Orleans to here. He heard there's oil in town, but there was no oil. Soon there was nudism. And Lucille drove the car down there. She set up a home in a tent on the shores of Rock Lake, waiting for her husband to come. Husband of one day that she'd been with. He was John Wick, maybe of his day. Lots of talks about gun battles on the way down in 1928. Also fought in Tampa. He had a cannon. He was sick of the poachers, so he built a cannon on Rock Lake. He only had to fire it once. And he screamed at the guy out there with his megaphone that he's a coach, the megaphone. If they didn't stop, the next one was going in their boat. And they left. Had a big fight with organized crime. He was forced to take the law in his own hands. A pet alligator named Little Loy, which was reportedly well fed, was only mid-teens in size, one of the largest alligators held in captivity in the state. Reportedly, the mafia in Tampa pulled their bounty on him due to the safety of its men, because then he had paid him a visit, he returned. Morrell goes into the excavator business on the side, and apparently he was good at carrying things. Wife in a 1940 picture in a Nudist magazine. There's even talking about him at the behest of the mob with a Klan. The police stabbed and beat him in 1934 when believed he was a communist, a murderer, or anything that would stick or could force a confession to stop the beatings. An article about him being by the corrupt police in Hillsborough County. And at Como, they had a manager who was extorting members over privacy in 1956, wanting to get blackmail. He was going to out them. So he told, Burrell told the trustee of the property that he would take care of the problem. A week later, the manager and his wife, along with Little Boy the alligator, all disappeared and were never seen again. It was a coincidence, I don't know. He fought this suspicious transfer of Lake Como from a non-profit to a for-profit entity in 1973. And when he was 80 years old, they got mugged in Tampa. He had $1.25 in his pocket. He was quoted as saying, they pulled a knife on him and says, "You're going to try to do this with just those two little knives?" Ended up in a fight. Two of the assailants ended up in the ICU. The third one crawled away with his leg barely attached, but never walked again. The fourth ran, and he was interviewed him. The police interviewed him in the hospital. He was a little beat up, and he says, "Good thing I wanted my lucky quarter. They didn't take my lucky quarter because it was good that this happened when I was 80 years old because I was younger than the 4 dead men." He's a guy who had not been able to run fast enough to get away. He had a couple broken ribs, so he's getting a little too old to scrap. These are the founders of Como back in the day. All the Burrells, one holding the wine right there, and that's his wife Lucille. She died sadly in 1948 at age 44. He dug through a sinkhole, excavating in the middle of Lake Como, trying to make a beach. It sank the excavator. He only barely survived, had to swim back to shore. The thing is still down there on sonar. It caught a catamaran about 20 years ago and flipped. So, you know, what lurks below in these lakes, like the one out here that become part of sinkholes, you don't know what's down there. So this is the annual, I'm going to skip the annual Nude employee photos that both Paradise Lakes and Como had, because they're way too spicy. If you want to see them, buy the book. Paradise Lakes grand opening, it had 2 grand openings 3 months apart, because they had so much fun with the first one. They had a plane crash at Lake Como in 1991. There's this weird story of Natura 20 years ago, when they were trying to build a Dollywood resort in the former Ford Naturist Park, which itself is just got crazy stories. the guy who was doing this, the website had been taken over by a pornographic file sharing free-for-all, and so he lost all his credibility. He became shunned by Anna and had terrible bad press, and he was trying to make the existing residents become an HOA, and the project collapsed. The first Nudist Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops in the country were in City Retreat. Only Nude Scouting Jamboree was held there in America. Was going on really well in the Eastern Sunbathing Association, which was a divisional group of the American Sunbathing Association, now the ANR, trying to co-opt a successful jamboree, and then on how to organize it, the whole thing kind of collapsed. Yeah, a Nudist church currently in Nudist. Historically, there have been more churches back in the day. Nudist weddings are happening, from a single wedding, one at City Retreat years ago, to this group wedding, which is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 couples decided to get married all at the same time. And the most infamous nude wedding in Pasco County of all time was the Ellis Orvik naked nuptials back in 1965. The matron of honor cold caught the stepmother of the bride, and a fight broke out, leading to many arrests and an ambulance call. The life of Florida Naturist part back in the day was crazy, never dull. At least they had managed and thought ahead to call the Pasco deputies. There's a whole team of deputies waiting for the wedding to start. Paradise Lakes got an award for Business of the Year back in the day. And other awards. The county gives Caliente grants for their Naked 5K. Lots of good music. This is the Magic Marco Band, 1984, singing at Como. Dances, parties, conventions, nudist pageants, pudding fights, mud wrestling, all kinds of weird things. Essentially, life at Como can be summed up in one sentence, having a lot of good, clean fun here, which is kind of what happens in nudist places. Lots and lots of things. And here's the first pool, like I said, at Lake Dupree, the oldest nude-only swimming pool in Pasco County. Lots of these clubs. I'm going to just quickly go over 2 of them. The Sawmill and Paradise Lakes, or Paradise County, excuse me. The Sawmill is a gay community and resort north of Gates City, just about on the border, I think. It's a condominium RV resort opened in 2007. The largest clothing optional or resort in the county. But it's not the first openly gay community in the area. That was in 1948, a place called Sun Lake Camp for Men. Worried me because I found this place out after I finished the club. It's Patterson Boots, but it's not in Pasco County. It's just south. For people who can't see this, here's Boots City Center where the post office is. Here's the extension of the Veterans Expressway was down here. I think that big church. Well, it's up here. But anyways, there's a lake down there, and that's where it was, as far as I can tell. It's very difficult to figure that out. But the most important thing of that, it's not in Pasco County, but there's a party at the housewarming of Dr. Gesser, who was a famous naturopath who was gay, because he got arrested for doing a gay thing back in the South. But this is a who's who of temporary entries. The Shakens were there, Mr. Whitham, and if you look at some of these people, their names come about in other Nudist stuff. So most of the people that were Nudists, and this is how you can sometimes do historical work, because Nudists tend to hang out with Nudists. And so if you see stuff and you know a few of them are Nudists, you start thinking, ooh. And so you can kind of learn about people just by looking at who was at what parties back in the day. And sadly, nobody does these anymore in newspapers. Paradise Pines RV Park, I have a lot there. 81 unit upscale, privately owned gated nudist RV park. Took a while to build, but it opened in 2005. They added their pool in 2012. The last nude-only swimming pool built in Pasco County. Here is what it was in 1956. It was owned by the W.H. Clark Fruit Company as a migrant labor camp. And here's the same property. They never got rid of the houses. They just sort of went to seed. Bought by 2 guys from Nudist who decided to make it into a trailer park called the Whispering Pines Travel Trailer Park. They just sort of parked trailers around it and built a bathroom, as far as I can tell. Here's what the places looked like in 2000. Abandoned, windows have been stripped. They ended up burning them. The developer decided that it was the only way to get rid of them, so they convinced the fire department to burn a house every week from practice. Had a land cleared for development right after 2000. They had 3 contractors here. Here it was in 2005. Now that's all the spots, and we can see what it looked like in 2013. A nice new pool, nice upscale place, and now it's even got more problems. And this gives you some perspective. This is Paradise Pines. This is all Como. This is taken about 2000. So here's Como before they planted their pine trees. This is orange grove that's sort of fessing around and didn't do nothing. But here's all their trailers. Now they got houses back in here now. They had just sold this piece off to be built as a business park. And then this is Lake Linda, which is a small 26 double wides of Nudist place. And Paradise Lakes is right in here. The last Paradise Lakes condo development has not been built yet, which is called the Terraces. So that kind of, that road behind there is 41, and the old neighbor is coming off the side there. So, getting towards the end here, there's a lot of history still going on. They have a huge volleyball tournament, the Super Bowl South. They have naked 5Ks, pickleball. That car shows that car was somewhat infamous because it was sucked into a sinkhole with the family boat, and as their house went into a sinkhole in Nudist County. And I guess we'll leave it there. It's kind of a brief overview. It's sort of like discussing the entire world history in 40 minutes. But if you want to talk about this or anything else, I'd be happy to talk about it. And there's my dog with the first day of puppy. So, any questions? And if you have enough guts, I'm even throwing in 3 copies of the novel. That wasn't too long. It's like trying to squeeze a lot of material.
Any questions?
So that big lake in the overview, that was Lake Como. And there's an excavator in the bottom of it. Is that right?
Yes. And you see it. Right, that's like, I mean, the size it's not that big. It's probably 40 acres. And Paradise Lake is smaller and hidden in that.
So where's 41?
41 is right here. So confusion corner 54 and 41 is right there.
Headed out to Bill Mabry.
And Bill Mabry is right here.
The tribe. Yeah.
So when this was done, Bill Mabry was still one lane, or one, 2-lane highway. So it was just made into a 4-lane, right after this picture. So they're going to come together and you can't really see Walmart's no longer not there yet. Tractor Supply's not there, the ER is not there. So, but yes, we've also sonar. I didn't show you a picture of it. Miss Como boat. I've got a naked lady sitting on top of the boat. So Miss Como. We found that boat in the bottom of the lake when it was sonar. That's kind of cool. There's all kinds of weird things down at the bottom of that lake.
How deep is that lake?
Oh, pardon?
How deep?
Well, nobody's done where the hole is. Well, our theory is he broke through and the thing went right down, sort of. So unless you stand right over the top of the excavator's about 12 feet underwater. No, but the excavator itself is probably going down 50 more feet down a hole into a sinkhole. And then most of the lake is 12, 14 feet, and then shallower on the side. But right where he was digging, and we're going to do it at the right spot, down it went, was sinking. He swam forward, got stuck in one of the cables, but got himself out and got to shore.
Question. Is it true that if someone dies in Como, they go to paradise?
Or to Eden, they could go to Eden, some Eden folks. Eden's from up near here. So. Any other questions? Questions you're afraid to ask?
Is there still In Hudson, when I was in high school, my Girl Scout troop went out to clean the Girl Scout campground property and discovered that on one side it was a nudist colony. Is that still there? It was north of 52.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's the Florida Nations Park,
I don't know
which
what
is
it
the
was.
which is the crazy place with a wedding that got into a fist fight.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least there's like 5 or 6 newspaper articles about people that died there of mysterious things.
There was a Girl Scout camp, Nudist side on one, and a Boy Scout camp on the other. Girl Scout camp right in the middle. Figured that one out.
I don't think that was either. There's only 2 places up that side. So I think that's what the one was.
It's off of 52.
Yeah, they're north of 52. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Why doesn't Pasco County have a new beach with all this nudist resort?
That's the beaches.
Yeah.
We don't have a beach.
You know, I mean,
We
They-
can't
they-
really call Green Key a beach.
They've tried. The guy who's in charge, and you know, he's not here. They were going to come, but they got car problems. But the guy who's in charge of the Tampa Bay Free Beaches had discussed this, and him and I discussed this, and he said, well, the couple of beaches they have, it really was a good spot. The beaches are really small that they have, and you know, so the place they're trying to put it on is East Beach on Minnesota. Nobody goes there the way it is, and they've sort of in the process, and it would not surprise. It's either A, they're going to get it approved, or B, that's going to be the end of the matter. It's never going to come up again. But they've been doing surveys. They've had letter writing campaigns. They met with the county board a couple weeks ago in Pinellas, and they were favorable to it. One person's definitely against it. 3 are definitely for it. And 3 haven't put true politicians. And of course, they're busy because they got a baseball stadium that's a mess, and you know, a lot of things going on in Pinellas County. But some of it's their own making.
Any more questions from anybody? All right, a round of applause for. Hang out for a little bit? Okay.
I'll be.
Perfect. Well, thank you all again for coming this evening. We have a program, we try to have a program like this every month. How many of you have not visited the museum? All right. Y'all owe us $20. Come to the museum. We're open Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We just celebrated 50 years of being a historical society. And our museum has been here for since about the 1980s. We have a bunch of really cool displays, exhibits, memorabilia, photos. We have a library, like you heard me mention earlier. So we have a lot of really cool information and exhibits about all of West Pasco County. So that's Hudson, Arequipa, Odessa, Trinity, and of course Port Richey and New Port Richey, and Hudson. So make sure to come on by.
Yes, this book is in the library.
Oh, exactly.
have this book in the library?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're always looking for volunteers as well. So if you're interested, we have a lot of different things that you can help us out with. Not just working in the museum, but also working on special projects. What else should I mention? I mentioned the Living History Project at the beginning. Anything else? Anything else that you want to mention? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and have a wonderful evening.